everyone, this is Mindy Egan for Lawn Fawn, and in today's video, I'm going to be creating a slider card. Now, the element on my card that is actually going to be doing the sliding is going to be this adorable snail, and this is the new garden snail, and I am going to be doing some die cut inlay to color it in. The first thing that I'm going to need is some double-sided adhesive sheets. So I have a piece here that I'm going to trim down to about the size that I need for the base piece of my snail and also the grass. I want to do a few pieces of this grass so that I can kind of fill in my scene a little bit. The next thing that I'm going to need is some white cardstock. So I'm going to be using the Lawn Fawn 80-pound white cardstock, and I'm taking one of these adhesive sheets and I'm peeling back the backing of it. So that way it becomes kind of a sticker. I'm placing the sticky side down onto the cardstock. I'm going to burnish that down with my finger. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other piece. I could have just cut one whole sheet of double-sided adhesive and place that over the entire panel, but I like to kind of save as much as I can when it comes to these double-sided adhesive sheets. If there's any part that's going to hang off of the edge of this cardstock, I'm going to trim that down because I don't want any of that sticky residue on my die cutting plates. Then I'm going to line up the base piece for the snail and the base piece for the grass and run that through my die cut machine. I did do the grass 2 more times, so I have 3 of them there. And off screen, I went ahead and die cut the outline for the snail in black and also in white. I want to be able to customize the color myself for the grass and the snail. This is the grass outline piece, and when I ran it through my die cut machine, it actually saved the inlay pieces or the negative pieces inside of there, and I'm going to keep that there. So I brought out a media grip mat. This is just a silicone surface to kind of hold everything in place while I ink blend, and I'm starting off with freshly cut grass and a small blending brush to add that light color to the grass, and then I'm going to step it up a little bit and add some contrast. For the contrasting color, I'm going to be using Clover. These are all inks from Lawn Fawn. And for the darker color, I'm only going to go about halfway up. And really, I'm not worried about the outline. I want to make sure I'm covering the entire negative, or maybe it's the positive. But I really want to make sure I'm coloring in those pieces of grass. Since I have my grass pieces done, I'm going to go ahead and do the assembly. I die cut out that same outline piece using black cardstock. Now this piece I'm playing with is the piece that has the double-sided adhesive on it. I probably would suggest more using either your glass surface or a scratch piece of paper to place some double-sided adhesive on the back of your panel and then securing it down to your work surface, because you can see that once I peeled off the backing of that double-sided adhesive, it kept sticking to my fingers a lot. So I would suggest maybe securing it down to your work surface with some repositionable tape. What happens when I use that double-sided adhesive sheet is it turned my die cut into a sticker. So that way it was a lot easier to just place the outline over the top and secure it down, and then I can fill in my grass piece. And I'll do the same thing for the other 2 pieces of grass. I don't end up using all 3, but I do like to have extra just in case. For my snail, I did die cut this out of white cardstock, and I'm going to be ink blending my color on. You could also start with a colored piece of cardstock, but I kind of like being able to customize this, especially the main body of the snail. This one I thought turned out super cute. So I went ahead and popped that out with my craft pick, and I'm going to start off with a small blending brush, and this is going to be sugar cookie ink. It is a very warm color, kind of a yellowish color, and I'm adding that to one side of the snail. Then I'm going to come in with a celery stick, and I'm going to add this to the other side of the snail. And I don't want to color in the entire area. I just wanted to have kind of that two-tone look to it, making sure to kind of be a little heavier handed right at the very edge to give it that contrast. I was a little lenient on my sugar cookie color, and I didn't fill it in quite all the way that I wanted to, so I'm going to bring that back in and fill it in up towards the top of the head. To me, this is where the snail is facing the sunlight, so he's going to have a really nice warm and bright glow to the front of his face. For the shell of the snail, I started out with ballet slippers, which is a really light pink. And I started in the center and kind of blended my way out towards the outer edge of the shell. Again, you could have started with maybe a light pink cardstock here instead, but I'm going to come in with some detail. And I started off with bubblegum. I had gone to Pinterest or Google and I looked up different kind of cartoon looking snails, and I found this really cute image, which is what I'm replicating today. And I came in to add like these stripes to the shell, and that's what I'm using the bubblegum ink for. But as I was blending, I noticed I did not blend out far enough with the ballet slippers. So I did add in a little bit more of that light pink, and then maybe even bumped it up just a smidge with plastic flamingo. I'll do the same thing for my snail that I did for my grass. I peeled up that backing to the double-sided adhesive sheet, placed my snail down onto my silicone mat, so the adhesive is exposed right now. Then I took the outline piece that I die cut from black cardstock and I'm just kind of poking out all the inner pieces and I'm placing the outline over that exposed adhesive. These make it so quick and easy to layer up the images. I always kind of start on the left-hand side and slowly work my way over to the right. I don't let anything really touch until I'm fairly confident that it's lined up correctly. Now I'm taking my pieces that I did the ink blending on and I'm going to just line them right on up in there so I can inlay each of those pieces. And when I had die cut the outline from black licorice cardstock, it also had the eyes and the mouth. So an embellishment wand comes in really handy here for the eyes, but I did find that the mouth was a little bit easier to pick up with my reverse tweezers. After I have everything in place, I decided to step this up a little bit. And one of the things I noticed, or one of the images I fell in love with on Google for a snail, were these little dots. So it's kind of adding texture to our image. For the snail, I am adding two different shades of green with my Copic markers. I have YG07 and YG09, just adding little dots right at the very back where my green is. I'm also going to do the same thing with the shell. I did RV 17 and RV 14. When I started doing the shell, I only did like small little groupings here and there. But then as I was doing that, I just realized it would, or it could look a lot better if I just added the dots all the way around the outer pieces of the shell. So it's going to have that little bit of texture going all the way around into the inside of that kind of swirl. And here I'm just going to show you a close up. I think he turned out absolutely adorable. Now I'm going to work on the background for my snail, and this is going to be a very clean and simple type of background. I have a piece of mermaid cardstock cut to 4¼ by 5½. No, actually, I think I trimmed it down. This is 4 by 5¼ I'm taking a little bit of repositionable tape, putting it on the back of the cardstock. So that's going to hold my cardstock down on my work surface. And then I'm bringing in one of the layers from the cloudy background stencil. This is actually a 2-piece stencil, but I'm just going to be using the one layer for right now and using some of the lawnfawn washi tape to hold my stencil down. I want to do a tone on tone look for this, so I am going to be ink blending with my merman ink and my blending brush, just lightly going over the area of the stencil. You could also create your own clouds by using the cloudy border stencil. That would have been really nice too. I know that the bottom portion of my card is going to have some ground to it, but I thought I'd still go ahead and add the clouds down there just in case I change my mind. For the ground, I trimmed out a piece of white cardstock. This is about an inch, let's see, 1 inch by 5¼ So it's going to match the same size as my card. And I didn't want this to be super big because I really want to make sure I have room for my slider. I started out by ink blending antique linen distress oxide ink. Then I'm going to flip this and I'm going to bring in gathered twigs towards the bottom. And I'm going to blend about halfway up so it slightly overlaps the antique linen just to give that a little bit of contrast. So now that I have pretty much the main pieces or components of my card put together, I kind of just lined it up to see how this was going to look. And like I said, it's a very clean and simple scene. And I'm going to bring in one of the dies from the Slide On Over die set. I have not used this set in years. I thought it would be really great with my snail to be sliding along the front of my card. Full disclosure, I have not done this in so long. I really should have reviewed the videos myself, because there is a little bit of a mishap, but I still think it turns out super cute. So I used my ground as kind of a guide on where I want my slider. My slider is going to be just above that ground. So I ran that through the die cut machine. You can see where the opening is that die created. And I'm going to go ahead and add the ground because I really don't need to do anything else to the bottom of my card. So I added some tape runner to that, and I'm going to place that right underneath where my slider piece is going to be. I did a lot of double checking with this. So I was constantly bringing in my white card front that I'm going to use. That is cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I brought that in quite a bit to make sure everything was looking just like I had hoped. I'm going to go ahead and add my grass down. I didn't think I needed to worry about that. And the main component was going to be the slider. So I could go ahead and fill this in. I'm adding my tape runner to the back of that grass and just kind of tucking that in over on just the left hand side. I knew my grass was going to be kind of overlapping the slider portion, but I thought that would act as maybe a stopper for my snail. So now that that is pretty much settled, I did want to add in a few additional elements to this. So of course I brought in the clouds from the All the Clouds stamp set, and I'm also using a speech bubble, and this is from All the Speech Bubbles. I inked it up with the jet black ink and I'm stamping that down on 80-pound white cardstock. I do like to stamp these twice because I don't push down real hard when I'm closing the door of my MISTI. And since nothing had moved, I can stamp it again and get a really nice dark black outline. I picked out one of the sentiments that's going to fit inside of that speech bubble, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp that. Once again, I just kind of gently press down. I don't want to push too hard because I could risk it distorting those letters. So just gently press down, and then that does give me the ability to stamp it twice. I'm going to do some really quick and easy coloring by taking a BG11 and BG10 Copic marker and just outlining the inside of my clouds and also that speech bubble just to add a little bit of color to them. Then I will take the coordinating dies for each of the clouds and the speech bubble, hold them in place with some Post-it tape, and run these through my die cut machine. Most times I will die cut out extra. So these are just whatever I had left of that scrap or that piece of cardstock that I stamped everything on. I went ahead and die cut out additional pieces to layer up my clouds. So each cloud and the speech bubble is going to have one layer of cardstock behind it just to give it a little bit of stability. And I like that little bit of extra thickness to it. The sentiment that I chose to put on the front of my card today is going to be from the All the Clouds stamp set. I started out placing the entire sentiment on the front of the card, but I was having difficulty lining them all up straight. So I took the bottom part off and I'm just doing the top line for right now. So this is Sending Smiles. I used the lines of my MISTI to help make sure that that was straight. And I centered that in the top portion of my cardstock. So I made sure the margins were even on both the right and left hand side. I cleaned that off with my stamp chamois, came in with the second line of my sentiment. So this will say, Sending Smiles Your Way. And because I used that light blue cardstock and I have just a very subtle clouds stenciled in the background, the sentiment stands out nicely. Now I can start working on the actual slider mechanism for my card. So I am using a traditional penny to do my slider, and I'm adding a strip of foam tape to the center of it. So this is what's going to pop up in that opening that I die cut out for the slider. I added 2 pieces, but then I started wondering if maybe I should pop it up with 3 strips of foam tape because I kind of wanted my snail to be up a little bit more so it didn't catch on that grass. And so I came in and added a third piece. I'm wondering in hindsight now if I should have just left it at 2. So here I'm just kind of bringing this in, lining that up. I don't have anything glued down yet, but I'm adding in this additional strip that I had die cut out of the panel when I did that slide on over die. This is also a part that I'm questioning in my own card making. I'm wondering if I should have just maybe ink blended that instead. I think maybe that little bit of extra cardstock there may have hindered the movement on the front of my card. Now I'm placing my snail onto my slider mechanism. So I remove the backing of that foam strip. I have my penny coming in from the back. That foam strip is added through the slot, and then I placed my snail on top. On the back side of my card, we need to pop this up to give this room for that slider mechanism to move. So I took a long piece of foam tape and I folded it in half, and then I'm going to fill in the back of my card. I and making sure to get the edges, the right and left hand side, because I want to have a stopper there, and also just make sure that that dimension is consistent across the back of the card. I always start off by lining it all up, making sure that it's going to fit. Once I know it's all going to fit, then I removed the backing of the foam tape and secured those down. I was a little worried that my snail would be a little bit too heavy towards the back. I was worried that his head was going to wobble a little bit more than I wanted. So I brought in another penny and some more of the foam strips, and I added that through my sliding mechanism so that my head is supported. So I have 2 pennies on the back. Now here you can see he is moving perfectly fine. So this is super cute like this. I was very excited how this was coming along. I decided to add in my clouds right about now so that I could trim off the excess before I attach it to my front panel. And for the speech bubble, the idea I had with the speech bubble is I wanted that speech bubble to kind of be floating in the air from the snails. So I brought in a thin strip of acetate. This is maybe about 1/4 inch. And I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue to the very top and secure my speech bubble onto that. So I'm going to hold that in place for just a second or two to make sure that the liquid glue really settles in. Again, I was a little worried that my speech bubble was going to be a little bit too long for just 1 strip of acetate. So I trimmed that down, added another little bit of glue to the top of a second piece, and put that on the other side. So I kind of have like 2 sticks of acetate there. I trimmed it off to fit behind the snail, and I'm adding little dabs of that liquid glue to the very bottom. And I'm going to tuck this in behind my snail. I probably should have did this before I adhered everything. Didn't think of it right away. So I just carefully pushed down to let that secure in place. Just be careful that your liquid glue doesn't seep over the edge and stick your snail down to the front of your card. So you saw there that I was playing with it. Everything was sliding perfectly. It was looking great. So I went ahead, removed the backing of my foam tape. I'm going to place this down over the top of that strip that I already adhered down so it looks like a consistent background. And then here's where it all kind of fell apart on me is my snail did not slide on his own. I had to manually push him. So I think that little bit of extra cardstock behind it kind of hindered it, I'm thinking is what happened there. But whether or not he moves on his own or he has to be manually moved, I still think came out super cute. And there's nothing wrong with manually moving him. I think that's kind of almost like a fidget toy. You just kind of sit and play with him a little bit. So I am still very happy with how this turned out. I also really love the clean and simple design of the card and the bright colors of my snail. So I hope these little tips and corrections that I've shared throughout the video help you in your slider cards, and I hope you are inspired to create. And just goes to show, do not give up even if it doesn't turn out exactly the way you had planned. Thanks so much for joining, and I'll see you again soon.